Hey there. So a few weeks ago, some of you may remember that I bought this antique chair off of Facebook Marketplace and that it is in dire need of reupholstering. It's coming apart at the seams, as you can see. I had a few requests to show you my process for reupholstering, so I'd be glad to do that. I'll do it in my stories on here whenever I get to it, because I'm sure I won't get this all done at once. And just know that I am not a professional. Anything I've learned from YouTube videos, library books, or just by experience. So if you are a professional or more experienced at this, just know that I'm not claiming to be a professional. So yeah, so before I do anything else to this, I am going to take off all the fabric because I want to know how much new fabric I need and just figure out what is underneath this and what needs to be done to it, because it could be as simple as just new filling and fabric, or there could be some other issues that need to be taken care of first. One chair I reupholstered a few years back actually had a broken arm, so I had to fix the structure of the chair before I could actually reupholster it. This seems to be pretty solid. This doesn't need anything, I think, but we'll find out first. So I'm gonna take all the fabric off and lay it out and to figure out how much new fabric I will need. So in order to take off the fabric, I have a few tools. I have my work gloves, because you don't know where this has been, you don't know what's in it, and you don't wanna, get a surprise. So I have these. I have some eye protection, just in case a stray staple or nail should pop up. This is a staple and tack remover. You can find this. This is a staple and tack remover. It's an upholstery tool. You can find it at places like Joann Fabric or online on Amazon or something. It just has these sharp points to get down underneath the tack or the staple and lift it up to pry it up. And then I also just have some scissors in case I need to cut any thread or extra fabric or something. Some sort of trash bag or bucket or something would be useful too, to put little bits of filling and scraps and stuff in too. So just have a place to collect those. And if you have small children or pets, just be aware that tacks or staples can come off. So you might want to do this in a place that they don't go, or at least put down like a giant drop cloth to collect up anything that might fall off, because you just never know if you're gonna miss something and you don't want them to find it. So the first thing I did was simply just take off the cushions to get to the base of the chair. And you can see that there's all this decorative, well, maybe you can't see it from there, but there's all this decorative edging piping along the side. So I'm just gonna take all that off first. Sometimes it's sewn on, sometimes it's just simply glued on. So be aware too, when you're using this, that it can really put some nicks in your wood. So don't force it down against wood, because you're gonna mess up your nice antique chair. One more thing I didn't mention is that if you have an old piece or a really, really dirty, dusty piece, or if you're extra sensitive to dust and stuff, you may want to wear like a face mask or a respirator, just something to keep you from breathing all that in. Since this is not that dirty and I am outside, I'm not gonna worry about it. But in the past, like I reupholstered a really, really old, dirty chair, and I definitely wore a dust mask because there was so much grit and dust coming off of it. So that's another recommendation. So it looks like this piping is actually sewn on because it is a high quality chair. Some lower quality chairs, it'll just be hot glued on. So all I'm doing is literally just like tearing this off. Because we'll add our own new piping at the end. One more thing that I like to do as I take apart a chair is to take pictures of individual parts as I go, so that when I'm reconstructing the chair... Mama. Have you been jumping in puddles? Anyway, so it's really useful to take pictures as you're deconstructing a chair so you can remember how it's put together. especially if you've never done this before. The first time I did this, I completely deconstructed a chair down to the frame and rebuilt the whole thing. So I was like learning to tie springs and do the jute, I'm blanking, do the jute base, you know, that you sit on. I'm blanking on the word. Anyway, so really helpful to take pictures. Okay, I moved you down a notch on my table so you can see what I'm doing. So I took off the piping down here, decorative piping. You can see under here that there's this notch that the fabric goes in. Maybe you can see that, I don't know. You see that? And there are all those staples in there. Sorry, I got really close to the camera. And I'm just pulling up the fabric and the batting now, but you are going to probably want to remove staples like that so that you have room to put new staples. Otherwise, your new staples are just going to be bouncing off of the old ones and not getting into the wood like you want. Pliers are also a very useful thing to have for those staples that don't come out all the way. You can just take them out like that. Of being totally transparent and honest with you, I am also sharing my mistakes with you. So I had a big boo-boo here. I was using my my staple tack remover, and you have to be so careful not to gouge the wood. And I gouged the wood. Let me show you. Boo-boo. So I have no idea where the piece flew off to. I'm gonna try to find it so I can glue it back on. I'm gonna try to find the piece and wood glue it back on because that's a big boo-boo. The tip of this thing just caught the wood just right and just flicked it right off. So you have to be so careful with this. Helpful when deconstructing a chair is that if you can actually just like rip the fabric off while still keeping it intact, so like rip it around the edges or cut it off, sometimes it's easier to get to the staples that way rather than digging, you know, into the staple with the fabric still there. If you can just rip it off, then sometimes the staples will like pop up a little more, or there will be a little more room under the staples in order to pry it up. So that's what I just did with this. I just pried up the fabric and then I went around taking the staples out. So just one helpful tip. Here too, just like how much glue was down in here. I'm having to scrape out these chunks of dried glue. It's like industrial glue. And it's making some of the staples hard to see because there's glue over it. I also want to show you that when I'm prying up the staples around the top of the chair here, obviously this is the part that you're going to see and the fabric is going to cover this part. This is really hard to do one-handed. But so when I'm prying, I'm coming in here and going under the staple and prying against this part back here where the fabric is going to cover. You do not want to come this way and pry against this wood, because it's going to dent it or chip it, and this is the part you're going to see. So come in from behind where the fabric's going to cover and put your pressure that way. So I just pulled the backing off, and I'm actually going to have to take the cardboard layer off too, because the case with this chair is that the very back of the chair, the fabric that you see, is put on from the front. So that'll actually be the first part of the backing we put back on, is the back fabric that you see from the back. Bear with me here, I'm trying to explain this the best I can. So we'll do that first, but I'm gonna have to take the cardboard off so that I can get the back fabric off. I wanna show you what little treasures I found down in the chair though. Hair clip, a quarter, a blue sequin, a bead, a bobby pin, and some random caps. So, treasure find. It's sweet though, because the lady I bought it from told me how she and her husband would read books to the kids in this chair every night. So it's just a fun little find that's a remembrance of all the years of use that this chair got. So it's had its good use in life, and it's getting a second chance at life now. So that was fun. With getting the piping off, the trim, all I did was get my tool under there and pry it up so that now I can just rip it off with my hand. Because most times it's just glued in. So you can pretty much just rip it off. I'm doing this one-handed. There we go. And you want to take that off before you start trying to get the staples out. So just a side note, when you're taking out staples, don't feel like you have to take out every single staple. The important part is just to get enough of them out that the likelihood that you're going to keep running into staples when you're trying to staple new ones in, it's diminished. So if there's a staple or two in here that you just cannot get out for anything, or it's in a place where if you get it out, you're going to end up damaging the wood or something, just leave it. Don't worry about it. But I have a whole bunch of them lined up right here that are not in a visible spot that I do need to get out, because otherwise I'm just going to keep running into them when I'm trying to put the new fabric on. Let me show you what I mean. So this is the inside base of the chair, and you can see there are just all these staples lined up here. I am going to try to take as many of those out as possible, and I've already been doing that over here, because the likelihood that I'm going to hit these when I'm using the pneumatic stapler is pretty good. Like, I don't want to keep having my staples bounce back at me because I keep running into old staples. Well, there she is, and I got all the fabric off, and I think I got pretty much all the staples off. So I am leaving this cover over the springs because there's really no reason to remove it. It's going to be covered with fabric and padding and all sorts of stuff, so why redo it? Other than that, I did leave the inner cardboard on the arms because once again, there's no reason to remove it, so why make extra work for myself? Otherwise, I took everything off, and the next step is to give it a good cleaning. So I'm going to vacuum it down, I'm going to wipe it down, just make sure it's nice and clean to start with.